1975, and certification is on file in the office of the Township Clerk. Roll call: Beatrice Perlow, Don Brenner,
Here.
Zachary Fine,
Here.
Jeffrey Reed,
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Here. Yeah. Communications. All right, hearing none, let's move on to approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Make a motion for that.
Okay,
I second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Letter G, matters to be discussed by the public.
That's
Hi,
you folks.
We'll start with row one.
Okay.
Do you have a timer? Thanks.
Michael Rothmel, 33 Union Street. Hello, everyone. I'm just here because I'm sure you're aware from the planning board meeting last time, there's a lot of concern about the development at Grant and Brown Street. And I guess what I'd like to know is, has the environmental committee looked at the application? Has the environmental committee weighed in with the township council? I know there's potential to buy it from him, Frank Palante rather. And also work that being done to preserve it. There's private citizens working to do that. And I know the EAC has the right to review projects and make recommendations to council and planning board. And I wanna know if they've done that, if you've done anything with it, and what the status of your review is, and what your opinions are.
Sure,
Thank
so
you.
a completed application has to be before the planning board for review, before anyone else can review it or offer comment. There is not yet a completed application for review by the planning board. So this committee has not engaged an application that hasn't actually successfully come before the planning board yet.
Are you going to meet before the next planning board meeting?
I personally am not.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else from the first row?
Go ahead, you speak first. You've got a great.
My name is Mark Thomas. I'm a physician. I was trained at Mount Holly Hospital in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm a member of Mount Holly Friends Meeting at the corner of Garden and High Street. And I'm also a founder of the Rancocas Conservancy, which is a land trust for the Rancocas Creek watershed, which comprises 367 miles of square miles of the of northern Burlington County and adjacent Ocean County and Camden County. And to this end, our mission is to preserve, enhance, and protect the cultural and ecological assets of the Rancocas Creek and its watershed. And to that end, as a member of Mount Holly Meeting, where we are vigorously advocating the preservation of watershed lands and the land that John Woolman walked on. And John Woolman was our very, very important Quaker who was born on the banks of the Rancocas. I know I'm going on a little bit, but I'm also, in terms of public health, there is much more data coming to the fore now, epidemiological data that has been supporting the proximity of schools and trails to neighborhoods and the mental and physical well-being. So to that end, as you might know, Mount Holly is, with the exception of maybe a quarter of a square mile in the Assiscunk drainage on the other side of the mount, all within the Rancocas Creek watershed. And to that end, intact watershed lands, which means an intact canopy, understory, herb layer, leaf litter, is of great importance to the health of the watershed, this being the Rancocas. And with regard to the overall plan in terms of this fitting into what we would call a green infrastructure, which connects greenways and cultural natural assets into a network of assets that accrue to the benefit of the watershed and, of course, this particular township. I think that every element in this is very important, and I think that the lands that have been described here rate quite highly in terms of their value both to ecology and to neighborhoods, community character, and the community's sense of belonging to this landscape. So to that end, and I would say that as a member of Mount Holly meeting, I speak for the congregation, and they of course worship here. I submit my encouragement for you to consider the upcoming application with regard to the watershed, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone from the second row?
First row's not done yet.
You were speaking of me, I'll speak. Name is Richard Dale, 232 Rutland Avenue. I just heard you state that a completed application, meaning the chair, completed applications need to be completed and reviewed before the Joint Land Use Board can hear an application. That there is no meeting scheduled prior to this next Joint Land Use Board meeting coming up on August 27th. So that's correct, you're not
Yeah.
gonna have a meeting prior to this next Joint Land Use Board meeting.
Correct, and we
And-
could not review or make recommendations on an application that isn't completed and legally put before the board for review. We are not a reviewing or enforcing committee, we're a recommendation bearing
And
committee.
have you made, so you have had no communications between, you're on the planning board, so I don't wanna put you on the spot, but as a board, as the actual board, not speaking as yourself, and first-hand perspective, has the Joint Land Use Board and the EAC had any communication whatsoever about this development or any development prior to this, since you've sat in the seat, or any of you have sat on the seat? Because
No.
we are not seeing, there is a tree permit that's required to be completed, it's extensive, it's like 15 pages. It's up to 257. You know, so there has been a question regarding the Joint Land Use Board's procedure of operation since that tree permit has come into play. So has there been any communication at all since the tree permit ordinance went in place, it came into place? Has there been any interaction, any conversation between the Joint Land Use Board and the EAC, considering that it should be working in my opinion, it should be working hand in hand, since the tree permit actually ordinance originated from the EAC, and it applies, it's an ordinance, so it applies, to everything that's done in this town, actually, even a person that wants to cut down their tree.
Sure.
Okay, so.
If I
that-
may, this
Yep.
is a volunteer committee
Oh, I'm aware.
that makes recommendations and shepherds projects. We are not an enforcement arm of the township government. We are not inspectors. We don't issue or review or check permits. None of those are within our purview. That's a township issue.
Oh, so you're saying that this EAC is standalone, has nothing to do with the tree permit ordinance as it applies to anything being done in this town, or specifically anything that's an application that goes before the Joint Land Use
Yeah,
Board?
this volunteer committee is not an enforcement or permitting arm of the local township government.
But it does work, it does have communication as a recommendation.
Recommendations, we
Okay,
make
you know.
recommendations.
I'm not sure who does it used to be environmental resolutions, I think it was, Fegley, Bob Fegley, my memory's not so great on this anymore. But there was always a environmental portion or piece of the Joint Land Use Board, applications. And it always was, there was always communications between not only the EAC, but any resident that had an environmental issue. But as far as this board goes, there hasn't been any communication.
No,
Okay.
this isn't a board, this is a committee of
A
the
committee,
township
all right,
council.
Right, you know,
Yeah.
I've forgotten more than a lot here. That's the timer,
Thank you.
so we're running with 3 minutes on this meeting as well?
Mhm.
Okay, it's running by Robert's Rules of Order?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from row one?
Yes, my name is Richard Dow, 232 Rutland Avenue. Like many people here tonight, I'm here to encourage this committee to do what it can to preserve open spaces, wooded spaces, green spaces in town. I served on the RV school board for 4 years. I was also a member of the green team. here in town briefly, so I'm familiar with how government works. All the same, in your advisory capacity, you do have the ability to advise council, talk to council, whatever your power is. We want you to use that to help this situation, because we are in a very dire situation now where many of the few remaining wooded lots in town are in serious danger of development. So we are asking you to do what you can, whatever you believe you can, both that you can do, both as members of this committee, as well as private citizens, to encourage the council and do what you can to make the situation better. In particular, we do have some properties identified for a green belt leaking to Rancocas Creek. Randy, are you going to talk about that? A little bit. So we have properties identified, and I think our ideal situation would be if the council actively pursues acquiring these properties. Perhaps you guys could work with them. You could spearhead identifying properties that need to be preserved in town. Just an idea off the top of my head. We would be very pleased if something like that were to develop. And as far as other things are concerned, like the tree permit, whether or not council has given you the ball, you still have the ability to say to council, hey, by the way, we notice this tree permit isn't being enforced. We don't have the power to enforce it, but it's a matter of concern to us. Whether or not they're open to it, they tell you to take a hike, or whatever your relationship is, if it's a good relationship, bad relationship, I don't know. But you do have the power to raise your voice, make the issue known, and hopefully that will lead to positive change. And that's what we're all hoping you guys will be able to do, as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Anyone from the second row?
Randy Rothmel, 33 Union Street. Excuse my voice, my allergies are really bothering me today. I have a really scratchy throat. I just want to read from the ordinance that created the Environmental Advisory Committee. One of your duties. One of the duties is, it says, with the confines of available resources, maintain in conjunction with the township officials an inventory of open space, recreational areas, natural resources, which may include mapping and other appropriate documentation. In addition, the EAC may make recommendations regarding the acquisition of property by the township by any appropriate means for the preservation or conservation of open space and other lands and water which advances the environmental health of the community. That's within the ordinance as written under the E360 code. So you have the ability, I understand your advisory committee, you can just advise and understand that. The open space plan was done in 2014. It's 9 years, it's almost, I don't know if it's required to be updated every 10 years like the master plan, but it's getting close to it because a lot of things have changed in town. And this map, can you place it up because I don't want to get close to people. This map that I actually created, this map that I actually created shows the properties that are currently preserved, municipal, county, and land trust green areas, and then identified on there by the trees or other wooded lots that could potentially be preserved that aren't preserved currently. The ducks represent wetland areas that potentially could be preserved. What the open space plan doesn't have, it talks about the open space lands that has been preserved by county, state, or land trust, but it doesn't identify any potential properties that could potentially be preserved. And one of the things open space plan should do is not just have the block and lot numbers of lands that are already preserved, but also identify the block and lots of potential lands that could increase open space and be preserved. And that's not part of the open space plan, and that should be added. I've been trying to put together the block and lot numbers of these particular parcels. It's not quite complete, because I want to double check and make sure everything's correct before I make it available. But this is something that you could potentially take to the township and advise them that this would be important, especially that one little greenway area up and down Grant Street, Levis downwards towards the creek, could potentially form a very nice greenway area connecting to the creek that would be very important, as Mark has already identified. So I just wanted to bring that up. The other item I wanted to mention is that in 2019, we actually had a grant through Sustainable Jersey funded by the tree. Can you just continue for a second? I have this a second. It was a grant that we got, that we planted trees along for repairing buffer along Milldam Park and Ironworks Park. As part of that grant, it states in there that within 4 to 5 years, we are supposed to take off the tree protectors. It's time to take them off because otherwise those trees will die. And I'm sure we can gather a whole bunch of volunteers just to go down there and cut them off. But if we don't get them taken off, all those tree plantings that we did are gonna die because they're gonna be girdled. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's a project that you can set aside a volunteer day and people will come out and do that work. Thank you.
Anyone else from row 2?
Good evening, my name is Luis Lopez. I'm a former member of the Green Team from 2013, right, Richard Down? I would like, join back. I helped every event in that years and did, a great service. I would like to be back in the team if possible. And I see you stepping down. There's another candidate, is the vice mayor to Kerr. That candidate is Randy Hoffman. She know more knowledge than before. If you could consider her as a new chairman, she would definitely approve the quality of Mount Holly Township and write grants and see a lot of stuff coming. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Kayla, can you explain the process by which people can apply to become members of the committee? We are always looking for new members.
I believe it has to be emailed to Sherry at smornell@twp.mountholly.nj.us for the application.
Row 3?
Arlene? Okay. Tara Astor, 416 Buttonwood Street. I'm also a member of council, so I'll disclose that. First, thank you for having the meeting. Thank you, Kayla Wallace, for telling me what time the meeting is. I've had so many residents over the months ask me when the environmental committee meets, and it was embarrassing that I didn't know when. I think part of that is just helping residents know what's going on when, so that we can harness all the volunteer opportunities in the town. I will email Sherry Marnell because the meeting time on the website says the first Tuesday of every month at 7:30. So, but that's not your fault. And I just, I already said, like, I tried to find out several times when the meetings are. I know that environmental committee is appointed. If there could be more outreach, I mean, I could share something on Facebook, but everyone knows where to go to get the application to submit. Not everyone that submits an application always gets appointed. I have seen that myself, much to my disappointment. Members of the community want to participate. There's a lot of untapped volunteer potential in Mount Holly, like Randy suggested with the trees, or some of the things that I saw on the agenda. Some people may want to join the committee, some people may just want to volunteer, like when they're free. Both are good. I noticed the last Facebook post on the environmental committee page on the past year, one about the Rowan County Earth Fair, and it'd be good, like, using social media. A lot of us will cross-post, like, the more people that know what's going on and how they can volunteer. There's retired people that love gardening, people that love the environment, that want to be involved, post meetings, ideas, volunteer opportunities. You will get people. People care. And to add to Randy's mentioning of the various different duties, I looked on the township website, and under description of the environmental advisory committee, there's a list of responsibilities. And I know that you're a volunteer committee, but if you can't do it, reach out, let people know if there are ideas that you have, but you need more bodies or more people that know different things. Whatever we can do to share with residents what it is that you want to do and what you need. And people who show up, they do care. It's a matter of, like, connecting and knowing what needs to be done and when and where and who needs what, who to reach out to. But if there are openings on the environmental committee, I will share it on Facebook with the links. But part of it is letting people know what's happening, because not everyone's just going to go to the website thinking, "Oh, wonder what positions are open." We have to reach out to them constantly. That's how I've been doing the council meetings, planning board, UEZ, whatever's going on. I made that promise. I want residents to know what's going on and to let them know. Who doesn't love the environment? So I'm just saying, like, we're here to help, and that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else in the third row?
Can I speak twice? I just have one piece of information that I think is very important to know. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. There are funds from Green Acres for open space acquisition, and Mount Holly, as an overburdened community and an enterprise zone, might be expected to get up to 100% grant for acquisition and soft purchase costs. So that is, what I'm saying is the time is optimal for doing a township-wide survey to see what rates for acquisition. And Green Acres actually is very, very approachable, and they take an active interest in what's going on. So thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to I, old business. We have a space where we can put the garden. Just need somebody on the committee to lead the project.
We have the tot lot on Monroe Street that'll be used for a community garden for a seed bank, I believe, right?
As well as an orchard.
We'll probably be able to get Public Works to clear it probably in the fall and winter and start planting next spring. There's not a whole lot of prep work that must be done here.
Yes.
Already a vacant lot.
Great.
And
And I'm
fenced.
happy to pass the list of volunteers off to whoever wants to lead. Item 2, we discussed it in the last meeting, and I don't think that anyone raised their hand to lead the effort. Dawn, did you, about the Sustainable Jersey recertification? Possibly not. Okay. I'll follow up after. Yeah, we need someone to take on the completion of that application effort. So.
I can do that, Kristen.
Okay, I can send you the details. Moving on to J, new business. Mike from the RV Environmental Club is really eager to discuss joint projects that we can do with the students. So I'm hoping that somebody is willing to take the lead and reach out to him to discuss possible joint projects that we could do together, especially including the raised bed food garden and the orchard.
So it'd be good to get them involved, like in fall, early spring, with building, planting, all that stuff.
Yeah, so if we could talk to him before school starts back, that would be great. Item 2, I was interested in anyone who's managing the social, possibly celebrating our completed electric vehicle charging stations in the municipal lots.
We have had some takers, people have been out there, we've had about a dozen people already.
Great, wonderful.
Are they operable?
They just opened, I believe, last week or the week before. They just were fully online. I don't actually know how to use them because I don't have an EV, so. That's the extent of my help.
Alright. Next up is K, matters to be discussed by the committee. I need to step down as chair, and I don't plan to renew my term. My term ends in December. Apologies. So we need a new chair.
Take a lot of drink
Under Robert's rules, I don't think I can nominate myself.
I'm gonna nominate Zach.
I'm gonna second.
I accept.
Okay. In that case, we need a co-chair or a vice chair. Yeah, I nominate Beatrice.
I'll second Beatrice.
Great, fantastic, thank you. Item 2 is just that I'll do my best to continue to join meetings to help continue quorum so that the meetings can continue to be held through December. But I cannot make promises that I'll be able to attend. I'll just do my best to make sure that keep the numbers
terms of new business, I mean, maybe not new business, but there was something just briefly that I wanted to bring up before the committee that I was remiss not to add to the agenda, which is, I might be a little biased in this sense because I live on Pine Street and I you know, probably more familiar with it than most, but what I thought was originally just like a one-off or temporary litter issue is clearly a pretty persistent and severe one. I've talked to some of my neighbors, you know, I was asking where does it come from, is this blowing out of trash bins? And the response that I've been given is that a lot of the people who walk through just feel comfortable kind of throwing their trash on the side of the road while they're coming through, which is disappointing enough unto itself. But lately my bigger concern is I've been finding glass bottles in my front lawn and along the sidewalk. I've seen kids, especially with it being summertime, running barefoot or just in flip-flops or whatever along this area, and I'm genuinely concerned that somebody's gonna get hurt from broken glass that's being left there by an unconcerned citizen or whoever is passing by. So I don't know if this is a matter of reaching out to the council and having a conversation about enforcing current litter laws more strongly or increasing the penalty for littering, but you know, it's one thing when it's an eyesore, but it's another thing when it transcends into a health issue or a potential public safety issue. So I did want to bring that before the committee, and you know, I would definitely love to hear other people's ideas if you have any suggestions for how to effectively combat the issue.
I think they're working on stronger enforcement because I know down at the bottom of Grant Street, where it meets Levis, I would say, there's a large issue with trash dumping, mattresses, you name it. Don't know how people get it out of their car that quickly, but you'll find it down there. And I think the police are trying to work to keep a better eye on it, like code enforcement and all that, get it cleaned up, because that is an ongoing issue.
I'm glad to hear that it's already on people's radar. And, if you hear anything,
Maybe more trash cans?
Well, maybe. Something we can discuss, and of course, if you hear anything else, I'd be happy to get involved with whatever kind of campaign or initiative ends up being taken.
Are there signs, like no littering signs? I mean, not that they deter people, but it may raise more awareness.
I think there is one over by the trail that, I mean, I don't even know if it's considered public, semi-public, I guess, that connects from Pine Street over to, it gets off behind, exactly, Monroe, and then it leaves you off over near Trainwreck. There's definitely a sign that says no littering there. It is clearly not stopping people, and I guess this is a roundabout way of saying there's definitely no sign that's facing people who are walking along Pine Street in either direction. Maybe a sign would be helpful. My concern, without knowing exactly how that would go, even if we could arrange for the funding or for the sign or whatever the case might be, is it kind of seems like people feel like they can do this with impunity as it is. I mean, hopefully this is not something that requires the township to like install cameras. I mean, I think that's a pretty expensive and potentially over the top endeavor, but you know, maybe a sign is a good first start, and I think there does need to be some consideration of how to escalate if these signs are not stopping people in the same way they're not stopping people along that trail behind Monroe. So, my 2 cents.
I do have some notes from a long time ago when I went to the regional flood thing, and I was wondering, I don't know, with the meeting sometimes being canceled, whether we really followed up on that, because I walked my neighbor's dog back where the baseball field is, and there's a lot of trees that are starting to fall into the